Welcome to Drive Time Live, the Mills Crenshaw Show on talkradio1.us. And I welcome each and every one of you to this show, and I will look forward to your calls. There is a message that I want to give, and I will repeat this message throughout the show because it's important enough that latecomers need to hear it as well. There's some very exciting news in the silver market. I got this just this morning from the Mint. The largest investment bank in the country today is JP Chase. Now, way back in 2012, just 4 years ago, they had 5 million ounces of silver in their corporate account. But recent reports have revealed that JP Chase now has a staggering 55 million ounces of silver. That's a tenfold increase. And just last year, JP Chase purchased 8 million ounces. Come on, that's a lot of silver for anybody to buy, even an investment giant like JP Chase. What do they know about silver prices that you don't know? Well, let me tell you what. JP Chase's CEO, Jamie Dimon, said in a letter to his shareholders, quote, "Some things never change. There will be another crisis, and its impact will be felt throughout all of the financial markets." So there you are. The CEO of the country's largest bank is telling their shareholders exactly what I've been telling you for years now. There is another crisis, and it's on our doorstep. And to protect shareholder value, they are buying silver by the thousands of tons. Don't you think it's past time you started storing away some silver of your own? I should hope so. Somebody sent me a picture this morning that you've heard the old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, this picture is this is worth at least 20 million votes, I would say. There is a picture of a very attractive young black woman holding a sign, "Hillary for President." And she's got sort of a sarong-like white filmy topless item on. But the thing that makes it significant, while she's waving this Hillary for President flag, she is standing on an American flag, which is on the ground. I think a picture is not worth 1,000 words. This one's worth 20 million votes for Trump. Okay, now, I got some other information this morning from the Mint that I'm going to share with you. It's sort of read between the lines information. The refinery, I'm not talking about the Mint. I'm talking about the refinery that processes the ore into bars before the Mint gets them. Well, the refinery is experiencing an increase of activity with sales of gold and silver to big banks again. You know who they are, like JP Chase just mentioned. And my insider in the Mint, who sent this to me, said last week when he was picking up orders from the refinery, they saw a Brinks tractor trailer picking up something they haven't seen for quite a while. Usually the pickups are done by smaller vehicles like vans. And from their conversations with management, they expressed frustration with trying to keep up with the demand from the banks, particularly relating to gold. And the demand for silver has increased as well. Now, all indicators that I've read from the various sources that we have indicate that there's another big push by the elites to buy up available precious metals. Now, just a side note, and this is kind of strange, the banks are buying 995 gold. When we buy gold, we have to have 4 nines fine, 9999 pure gold. And the banks are buying just 995 gold. Still very, very valuable, but it's not absolutely pure the way we have to have it and the way we deliver it. Our gold is all 4 nines fine. But this is very exciting news. Now, all of this is happening at the same time that Deutsche Bank, we've been talking about for the last couple of days, Deutsche Bank is having real problems. And the prediction is within the next week, it could create a massive run on gold. And the reports I'm getting from the Mint are it's already begun. Now, to the issue at hand. Last night's debate, did you watch it? It was incredible, and I want to get your reaction. Yeah, I've got a reaction, a big one. But I want to hear from you. What did you think of the debate last night between the two vice presidential candidates? To me, it was like a spoiled child talking with an adult. And if you're listening on any phone, all you have to do is dial 5, and that will bring you up on our screen, and I want to get your impression. Now, if you're listening on your computer, thank you for that, but we need you to pick up a phone and call in so you can talk on the air. And all you have to do to talk on the air is dial on any phone 701-801-0829. Now, if it's a hard line, you will need to dial 1 first. A hard line is one that's plugged into the wall. But if it's a cell phone of any type or a smartphone, you don't need the 1. Either way, you either dial 1, or if you're on a cell phone, you don't need the 1. Then you dialed 701-801-0829. 701-801-0829. Then when you hear the show on your phone, dial 5, and I will take your calls in the order in which we receive them. Remember, once you hear the show, all you have to do then is dial 5. You can continue to listen on your phone, but that will signal our computer that you're ready to talk, and we'll take your conversation in the order we get it. Pretty simple, pretty easy to listen. And last night's debate brought many things to mind, and I've talked to some people this morning, and the result was almost unanimous. And that being that the Democrat acted like a spoiled brat. But the other thought that came to mind is, wait just a minute. If Hillary were to win, her health is so bad that the chances are that spoiled brat would end up being president. Can we afford that? I don't think so. And even if you don't like the two principles on the top of the ticket, the difference between the vice presidential candidates is enormous. Both governors, but one acts like a spoiled brat and the other acts like the only adult in the house. What was your impression? And did you watch the entire debate, or were you turned off by the constant interruptions? Now, that's what I mean by acting like a spoiled brat. Let's see. Trying to remember the Democrat's name. It's not memorable, but it just seemed like he couldn't contain himself. He had to interrupt, almost as though he were afraid that if the public heard what the much more responsible Pence had to say, that it would kill off any chances of voting for Hillary. I don't know of a sane person who would vote for her in the first place. But this was embarrassing. Let's get the reaction of callers. We've got a call from the 928 area, 228 prefix. Caller, your first name.
This is Chap.
Welcome. I appreciate your call.
Oh, thank you. You know, Kane is a Marxist, and that's what he was. When he was elected governor of Virginia, he ran as kind of a moderate, and yet he governed like a liberal, and that's what most Marxists do. You know, they are spoiled. They want everybody to give them everything because they want everything. But we don't need a Marxist in this country. And I agree with you. That was probably the most important debate that we had this year, because those two, like you pointed out, are the men in waiting, and I think that's probably more critical than anything else, because something can happen to either one at the top, and if so, then you know those are the guys we're going to end up with.
Well,
so that was a pretty important debate.
There are a lot of people who don't like the two individuals at the top of the ticket. I couldn't believe the one thing that Hillary said when she was talking about Pence, and she asked, "Can't we just drone him?" She actually wanted to bump off the presidential or the Republican vice presidential candidate. Can you imagine a candidate for the presidency of the United States talking about assassinating somebody on the other side? Yet she gets away with that stuff.
Yeah. With her, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of rumors that nobody knows for sure if they're right or not, but there are all kinds of rumors of how the Clintons have done very similar things to their opponents.
Well, yeah, there is that long history of bodies that seem to follow the Clintons around the world. Ever since he was governor of Arkansas, that's been the case.
Yeah, they're a crime syndicate, and I can't figure out how the Democrats can have the gall to field her, because she is so damaged. You know, why would they support her unless they know that she'll give them all the goodies when she gets in, which we all know she will?
Well, it's because that apparently is exactly what they want in the White House. They want corruption in the White House. That's what they're comfortable with. And doesn't that concern you a bit?
It should concern every American, and people ought to look at that and say, you know, this isn't what we want. This isn't what we need. But people are voting their emotions instead of their head. There's a place for voting with your emotions, but most of the time you need to balance it out with a little bit of logic, and that's something American electorate doesn't seem to have.
Let's see, are you calling from northern Arizona?
That is me.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Yes, and we have to vote for McCain unless we want a cuckoo, Democratic senator that is out to get our guns and everything else. People here, they need to get their act together. They need to field one person against McCain, and then they could win. But no, they have to have. I think he supports people to run against him, knowing that if he dilutes the field, that people won't be defeated, because that's what he's done the last two election cycles. People, there's so many people running against him. He didn't get even a majority of the votes this last time in the primary, but he got more than everybody else. And so, what do we get? We get him, and it's kind of a discouraging thing. We either go with a corrupt, half senile old man, or we end up, in my opinion, or we end up with the cuckoo Democratic liberal who wants to take away our guns. What choice do we have around here? It's really quite incredible.
Well, look, I'm a Phoenix boy originally. I could qualify for the Native Sons, but of late I can't believe what's happening in Arizona. Which way do you think they're going to go as a state?
People are saying that the Democrats are going after the Hispanic vote, and they may be doing that. That's for sure. But I can't see, even though the major paper data supports Hillary, I just can't see how this state can really go Democratic. I just don't see how it can.
It would be a terrible shame if it does.
Well, you got that right. Not too many people like McCain because of his stance on things. He acts like a conservative until he gets elected, then he does whatever he wants. And people are tired of that. They don't want that. But he has so many people run against him, it dilutes the vote, nobody gets in. It's pretty aggravating.
Unfortunately, yo español es muy malo, but and it's so limited that I can't plead with the Hispanics who are in the country in their own language. But you would think that people who came here because they want a better way of life would clearly understand that voting for corrupt people, like the corruption that has historically been the tradition in Mexico, is not going to get them anywhere. It's not going to get them the better life that they're seeking.
Well, this is true. And I've seen people, even people who have, and I have a lot of compassion for Hispanic people. I don't have anything against them, but I've seen people who are much more stronger advocates for them admit that when they come here, they have to be taught not to be corrupt, because that's all they know. And because of that, when they get here, they're going to vote for corruption, because why would they do any different? Because that's what, like you asserted, that's what they grew up with. They think that's the way it is everywhere. And it's getting that way here too. I'm kind of curious to see how Colorado will go, because they're thinking that maybe Colorado will go Republican this time, and that would be a real switch. I'm curious about there. It'd be interesting to hear people from Colorado call in and say something about that. But that's where I'm curious.
Well, what was your gut reaction to last night's debate?
Pretty much what you had. I looked at McCain. I only got the last half hour because of misunderstanding. But I looked at the man, and he kept interrupting. I says, just let him talk, and he just, he can't do that. He is a very petulant person, and he doesn't, and the irony of it, I heard on a San Antonio station after the debate. They interviewed the Clinton campaign manager. They said, "Yeah, he did exactly what we wanted him to do." And I thought, really? You really want somebody like that? They thought they
Yeah,
were.
72 times he interrupted. 72 times. I mean, if it had been my kid, I would have swatted him on the rump.
He needed something. But he just, that's what they wanted. That's what they got. And I don't have a TV, so I couldn't watch it. But from what I heard, even though I'm not planning on voting for Trump, from what I heard, I have to agree with you. Pence sounded like the only adult in the room, although he doesn't agree with Trump on everything either. He was a dutiful Republican when he was in Congress. He did whatever they told him to do. And so I suspect that if he ever got to be president, that's exactly what we'd end up with again. Somebody who'd do whatever the Met establishment would tell him what to do.
And we don't need that.
We don't need that. That's what we get with Pence. So Pence really, even though he was the only adult in that debate, I don't know that he's a whole lot better, quite frankly.
Did you hear Rocky yesterday?
No, I was busy doing other things.
Oh, it's too bad, because Rocky, of course, is the Independent American Party candidate for president.
Right.
We'll have him back on between now and election time, and he's coming here this week because on the 14th we've got a gathering on the steps of the state capitol. I hope you might drive here for that because that's a Bring Your Bible and Guns gathering. It's and there are going to be microphones there so people can sound off and let everybody know what their thoughts are.
Unfortunately, I will not make it, but I'd be curious to find out, how that goes.
Well, if you have any friends or relatives who live close, please call them and suggest that they show up for that. 4:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the steps of the state capitol.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're in a very sad way in this country, and there's really only one person who could save us, and he's not running for office. And I think we better get on our knees before we do anything else. If we don't, then we're done for as a country. Putin is ramping up things. He's really acting like he wants to go to war with us, and quite frankly, if he did, I think we'd lose. And I speak that as a person who's been very patriotic my whole life. But I think we will lose if he goes to war with us, because they have modernized their military and we haven't. We got a commander-in-chief who hates the military, just like Hillary. And as a result, if somebody came in, I don't know that he would survive it.
I appreciate your call very much.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
Goodbye.
We'll be right back. When I'm asked what's the best precious metal to buy, my answer is always the same. Ask yourself, how do I get change? Predictions are that when the collapse of paper money comes, a 1-ounce silver round may jump in value to $500 or $600. Gold's going to be much higher. Well, how do you get change? As the national marketing rep for Phoenix Certified Mint, I recommend that you get the smallest units possible. Just call 801-706-2256. That's 801-706-2256. Leave your name and phone number twice and the best time to call. I'll get back to you. Or you can call tonight after 7 p.m. or before 3:30 tomorrow. Now, remember, nobody knows for sure when the collapse will happen, but more and more financial wizards are pointing toward the 1st of October or the election. So don't hesitate to call me. I'll answer any questions you've got. No obligation, of course. Call 801-706-2256. That's 801-706-2256. You're listening to Drive Time Live, the Mills Crenshaw Show on talkradio1.us. I talked again this morning to the webmasters. They are diligently working on our new website, and they're also working on getting it up on Facebook, and they're also working on that. They will have an app on the site for those of you who prefer apps, and we're going to try to get these little devices available that will play our show on your car FM station as well. So all of these are coming very, very soon. But the neat thing about this new technology is you can listen anywhere on any phone and not miss a lick. All you have to do is dial 701-801-0829. 701-801-0829. And then to talk, once you hear the show on your phone, all you have to do is dial 5. Now make sure you're hearing the show on the phone before you dial 5. But at that point, you'll show up on our screen and we'll take your call just like we did the caller from Northern Arizona. And it's worldwide. Anywhere in the world, they will be able to listen to you. I've told you in the past, we've even had a phone call from China, which was a lot of fun. But anywhere in the world, on any phone, you can hear this program. Now, don't forget, tomorrow is Thursday Blue. And my guest host has some call-in guests lined up that are very formidable. You're going to be able to hear from very significant people in law enforcement. And it will be a fun show. I know you will enjoy it. And in the meantime, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts? One of the things that we talked about earlier in the week, and I notice it's still in the realm of current news, is Bill Clinton's love child. Now, I'd heard about this some time ago, and the first time I saw a legitimate story on this, I was interested in the picture, and there is no question this kid, light-skinned, black, and he is the spitting image of Bill Clinton. And it really is the nose that sets it off. And he's got a thin bridge and a bulbous tip, just like his alleged dad. And it flares out suddenly at the nostril. And the eyes, too, they're a different color, of course, but very similar looking eyes. The kid's name is Danny Williams. And when you look at the pictures, and you can Google it, Bill Clinton and Danny Williams, and you look at the two pictures side by side, hey, you don't need a paternity test to see who the daddy was in this particular case. And of course, Bill Clinton's reputation goes a long way toward making this story seem plausible. And the way this story goes, Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, and he was out jogging one day in 1984 in Little Rock, and he met Bobby Ann Williams. She was a 24-year-old prostitute at the time at a housing project, And a few days later, Clinton jogged by again. This time, however, he stopped long enough to solicit Bobby Williams for sex behind some bushes, and allegedly he paid her $200. Well, over the course of several months, they engaged in similar behavior more than a dozen times, mostly alone, but sometimes there were actually additional women involved, and often at Clinton's mother's house out in the country, or downtown Little Rock Holiday Inn, where Clinton rented rooms under the name of William Clay. Now, eventually, Williams became pregnant, and she said she knew that Clinton was the father, and when the baby was born, it was white as it could be, and he'd been the only white man she'd slept with the month the baby was conceived. So she named her son Danny Lee Williams Jr., and the speculation is it was a way to get back at her sometimes husband. But not long after little Danny was born, Bobby ended up in prison, and her sister Lucille Bolton took care of the boy. And Lucille tried to force Governor Clinton to acknowledge his son. She took him to the governor's mansion, trying, certainly at no avail, to fight her way through the staffers who protected Clinton on the inside. And the sweet potato baron in Little Rock was taken to the streets to spread the word about Clinton's son. Robert Say McIntosh produced a flyer that read, quote, "The hottest thing going. Bill Clinton's private member will keep him from running for president of the United States." Well, it didn't do that, did it? And he was ostensibly trying to raise money for the boy, but he succeeded in raising a lot of eyebrows, as you can imagine. Then on February 18th of 92, the tale went from a hometown rumor to a spicy national story. It was published by the Globe, the weekly tabloid. And when I told him he was the father of my baby, he just laughed, Williams said. And at the time, he rubbed Bobby's belly and said, "Girl, that can't be my baby." But I knew it was. I just had this kind of a woman's feeling that this was his child. Now, the Globe claimed Williams and Bolton had taken lie detector tests and both had passed. But of course, that's a very common tabloid refrain. But despite the dramatic appeal, the story quickly faded. Can't imagine why. I mean, just because the Clintons have been protected by liberal media ever since he was governor shouldn't surprise anybody. Then there was a fictional account of the saga made into Primary Colors, a movie, the 1996 book that was published by journalist Joe Klein. Klein was asked about the fiction, whether it was based on Clinton. He said, well, the black child, love child, was something I made up out of whole cloth. Never even heard about the Clinton rumor you're pursuing. So that was Clinton, or Joe Klein's demurral of the story. Then came the text of the Newsmax report. Stephanopoulos wouldn't respond about that, and Bolton claimed to have talked to Hillary. And she said she wanted Clinton to take a DNA test, her husband. Now, in 1999, the Drudge Report ran with the news that Star magazine, which is another tabloid, claimed that it had conducted one using the analysis of Clinton's DNA published by Ken Starr during the impeachment report. Remember that? The story of Bobby Ann Williams and her child Danny hit the news media, rocked the White House, after it was revealed that the Star magazine ace investigative reporter Richard Gooding had exclusively signed Williams and his family to a paternity showdown. Jay Leno took up the story back when he was the star of late night. And he said, allegedly, there might be a 13-year-old Bill Clinton in Arkansas, he said. Well, we've already got a 16-year-old Bill Clinton in the Oval Office. Chuckle, chuckle. The Washington Times cleared Clinton with headlines, Clinton no Jefferson, love child not his. And Clinton is not the dad of the hooker's 13-year-old boy. But that turned out to be a lie. Now, again, Williams didn't resurface again until 2013 when the Globe conducted another interview. He was then 27. And his resemblance to Clinton was every bit as striking as it had been when he was younger. He said he's concerned that Clinton doesn't have long to live and he wanted to meet him face to face before he dies. I just want to shake his hand and say, hi, Dad, before he dies. I'd like to have a relationship with Chelsea, too. After all, she's my half-sister, he said. And on social media, he collected a few thousand followers, called himself the number Clinton Kid. He posted a video on YouTube to thank y'all for supporting me and following me, and I am real, he said. I am Danny Williams, thank you. Well, anti-Clinton activists are excited about the story, of course, and some linked to Stormfront, the white pride website for people who can't spell, where an article had been published entitled Clinton's Fanaticism for Race Mixing, linked to his having a black son. Others were content just to tweet how Hillary had banished Danny from the governor's mansion. On May 13th, the White Saints Watch, a Donald Trump supporter, tweeted, did the number handcuff Hillary? Discarded Bill Clinton's illegitimate black son? ? Who's Danny? Stay tuned. #MAGA. And look, these flames have been stoked naturally by the authors of the Clintons' War on Women. And that was published by Roger Stone, who's been a long-time Trump advisor, and by Robert Morrow, who is a conspiracy theorist. Now, the author of this piece in February sat down with Morrow in Des Moines, and he admitted he'd never met Danny to talk about the story. They made it up, he said. It's Clinton disinformation. It's a planted story, a fake public story. There is no DNA test. Where? Prove it. Danny didn't know about it. The Star magazine didn't know about it. Stone talks to the current people who own these magazines, and they say, what are you talking about? Now, this whole thing would certainly prove to be an embarrassment to Hillary, but that's small potatoes. His having an illicit affair with a hooker, frankly, for Bill Clinton, that's not news. He bragged about having over 2,000 women. The problem is Bill's assault on women. And those stories have been around for decades. Clinton has been accused of rape. Okay, Hillary cannot be held accountable for what her husband did, but she can and should be held accountable for what she did. And I'm talking about her attack on the women who accused her husband not of infidelity, or not infidelity alone, but for forced infidelity. He actually assaulted these other women, and in one case it was full-blown rape allegation. Now, Hillary herself is the author of the statement that women who talk about rape should be believed. But when it came to the accusations against her own husband, not only were these women not to be believed, according to Hillary, she persecuted them and tried to destroy their reputations. And all she did was get mud all over her face, in my opinion, because she looks culpable in this whole business. Your thoughts? Again, if you're listening on any phone anywhere, in order to talk, all you have to do is dial 5. It's just that easy. And if you're listening on a computer, we're grateful, but we ask you to pick up a phone and dial 701-801-0829. Again, 701-801-0829. And once you hear the show on your phone, just dial 5. That's all there is to it. And so saying, we have a caller. And the caller is in the 801 area, 410 prefix. Caller, your first name, please. Hello, caller.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine. Your first name?
Bill.
Okay, Bill. Your
yeah,
thoughts.
I was. There's a great danger, a very great danger, that Hillary is going to be the next president of the United States, which is going to be really bad. I want your opinion on, if she gets in, do you think that there's going to be, our gun rights are going to be taken away?
Oh, there's no question.
What's that?
There's no question. She will appoint radically liberal governors, and she will appoint radically liberal members of the Supreme Court, and that's where we're really in danger. Do you realize that she could potentially replace 4 different judges over the span of her presidency? And
are you talking about 4 or 8 years?
I'm talking if she's there for 8 years.
Oh boy, I just think that they're going to do it again. They got an agenda, and their agenda in their minds is we've got to have a black president, then a woman, then a transgender. That's their agenda. I think that's what's in their minds, and I think that they're hell bent on it. And it doesn't matter if she's not physically fit. It doesn't matter if there's something neurologically wrong with her brain. They're going to get her in there, and I think they're going to take our gun rights.
Well, it's not just the gun rights, because if she puts liberals on the court, they'll go after freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. Our religion will have to be practiced either in a house of worship or in secret. And you can count on the fact that there will be kangaroo courts everywhere. our freedoms will be down the tubes. The whole Bill of Rights will disappear.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I think she's got the numbers, and that she's going to be the next president, whether she's physically fit or whatever. She's going to.
Well, yeah, but did you watch the debate last night?
I was really busy last night. I caught bits and parts of it, but I didn't really. No, I didn't.
Well, let me tell you, it was so bad. The thing that worries me is if Hillary becomes the president, her own people will bump her off, and this idiot Kane will become the president. And I think he would be even worse than Hillary.
Yeah, it doesn't look good at all. I just if it gets to the point where they're like what they did in Australia, where they made everybody turn in all their guns, or they faced really bad fines. You might as well not have a constitution when they take the guns away. You might as well not have a constitution.
I don't know if you're LDS or not, but there is a prophecy that says that there will be a second great civil war, and it will begin in Chicago.
Yeah, I don't know about all those. I'm well versed in all those prophecies and stuff, but I just I don't know if or when they're going to happen. But I just know what's going on right now.
Well, let me ask you: if Hillary does become president, are you going to stand still for the loss of both freedom of speech and the Second Amendment? And
well, what I think is going to happen is there's going to be some divisions that pop up, and because when you have the government coming by to your house and they're pressuring you to hand your guns in for whatever reason, I think that there's going to be some resistance, and there's going to be bloodshed. I don't know how bad it will be, but I think that if she gets in, have you heard anything on the Senate? What the numbers on the Senate's going to be?
Apparently, it's going to be close. It'll be so close that they won't be able to override her actions because it takes a 2/3 majority to override.
I know. So she's going to get to do what she wants, but how far is she going to go? And I think that if she gets in there, there's a good possibility that she'll die in office. I mean, unless this recent, but I don't think that the stuff, her physical problems, falling down and whatever, I don't think that they're faked. I think that she's got some problems.
Well,
she's got some physical problems.
We played a recording of a doctor whose own analysis was
I know
that she has not Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. That she has an advanced case of Parkinson's disease.
And I'm telling you, I've seen people. There was a good gentleman in our ward, or my dad's ward, that he got afflicted with Alzheimer's, and he was the smartest. He was a professor at the U. He was the smartest historian, and he just, once that got going, he, over a span of about 7 years, by the time he was finished, he was in a home. They had to put him in a home because he was running off. What I'm saying is, when you get older, some people, when they get older, their minds are good right to the end. 97 years old, their minds are good. Other people, that's not the case. I think in her case, I think that she's got it, and it's just going to get worse.
Well, and that's why last night's debate was so important, because her running mate is worse than she is. He interrupted the Republican candidate 72 times. It was obnoxious.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of glad I didn't watch it, or I was too busy to watch it. I just think that there's a large percentage of people that are behind Trump, and if they go for the guns or if they try to confiscate the guns, I think there's going to be a rebellion or something. I got rain coming in. I gotta go.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. See how easy that is, friends? Bill called in. All you have to do if you're listening on your phone, all you have to do is dial 5. No big chore. And we will immediately see you on our computer. We'll bring you on just like we did Bill. And if you are listening on a computer, it's easy to grab any phone and dial 701-801-0829. Again, the number to call is 701-801-0829. And once you hear the show on your phone, then dial 5. And when you dial 5, that tells us on our computer that you're ready to talk. We'll take your call, and you won't even have to hang up. Once we're done with the conversation, we'll go on to the next caller, and you can continue to listen on your phone. Simplicity itself. Now, if you happen to be on a landline, that's one that plugs into a wall someplace, then you'll need to dial 1 first, and then 701-801-0829. And when you hear the show on your phone, then dial 5. That'll bring you up online. And we'll look forward to your call. What is your impression of the two candidates last night? I've heard a lot of accounts from different people, and even the press, surprise, surprise, reported that there was really no contest, that it was a runaway win for the Republican governor. But the Democrat interrupted 72 times. It was completely obnoxious. But he got the points in he wanted to. None of them made any sense. It was all pure political propaganda, but he got the point across. And that's what he wanted to do, and he didn't care how obnoxious he looked. He simply wanted to get in the attack on Trump. But to his credit, Pence deflected these shots and handled himself in a very mature, very professional way. And that was good to see. Some liberal newscasters say that he was so strong, in fact, that Trump was angry with him because that was going to make him work that much harder. Well, that is a very serious misnomer and a terrible exaggeration. Nevertheless, it demonstrates how biased the mainstream media are. This is Drive Time Live, the Mills Crenshaw Show on 1430. No, I'm sorry, I did it again. Eventually I'll get over that. You're listening to Drive Time Live, the Mills Crenshaw Show on Talk Radio 1.us. Omni Hypnosis Training Center has long been known as the leader in hypnosis certification training. They offer the most complete and organized course in hypnosis available anywhere. And this extensive course includes lecture, demonstration, experimentation, audio-visual aids, hands-on practice, plus extensive question and answer sessions. And this extensive training session is from September 29th through October 5th at Energy Development at 215 South Mountain Land Drive, Orem, Utah. Now, for a limited time, you can achieve certification and save $100 in the process. Now, there are only a few openings left. To be included, call Kayla Tomlinson, 801-259-7024. Kayla will get you registered and make sure you receive the $100 savings. But hurry, because these openings are very limited. Call Kayla at 801-259-7024. That's 801-259-7024. When I'm asked what's the best precious metal to buy, my answer is always the same. Ask yourself, how do I get change? Predictions are that when the collapse of paper money comes, a 1-ounce silver round may jump in value to $500 or $600. Gold's going to be much higher. Well, how do you get change? As the national marketing rep for Phoenix Certified Mint, I recommend that you get the smallest units possible. Just call 801-706-2256. That's 801-706-2256. Leave your name and phone number twice and the best time to call. I'll get back to you. Or you can call tonight after 7 p.m. or before 3:30 tomorrow. Now, remember, nobody knows for sure when the collapse will happen, but more and more financial wizards are pointing toward the 1st of October or the election. So don't hesitate to call me. I'll answer any questions you've got. No obligation, of course. Call 801-706-2256. That's 801-706-2256. And a good welcome back to you. You're listening to Drive Time Live, the Mills Crenshaw Show on Talk Radio 1.yes. .us. Okay, now here is an update. I got a troubling call before we went on the air today. And it was to the effect that mills were all set for the 14th for the rally on the steps of the state capitol. That's all set. And of course, Utah is an open carry state, so it's perfectly permissible for everybody who comes to that rally on the 14th and the 15th to bring their Bibles and their guns. However, part of the organization that was to sponsor this are having trouble coming up with the funds necessary to rent the building on the 15th. And that means I've got to reach out to those of you who are in this office. We need your help. Those of you who want the 15th, the rally, to invite all of the candidates to show up, we need some donations. We need your help. And I've tried to think of what we can do to make it worth your while. And a couple of things occurred. Number one, the main reason we're having difficulty is that Hillary Clinton has refused to say whether she will show up. And we're having great difficulty getting through the bureaucracy to reach Donald Trump. We have not heard back from the Trump organization. Are they going to show up? You would think that everybody and their dog would recognize that it's a foregone conclusion that the undecided voters, the independent voters, are going to decide who our next president will be, because they have the numbers to swing the election. And you would think that this opportunity to speak directly to the undecided voters, not a debate forum, but each candidate, and we're inviting all candidates, even all of the fringe candidates, the fringe party candidates. You would think that both Hillary and Trump would realize that this is an opportunity for them to swing the election in their direction, but we're having trouble getting through. So, here's what I will do. If you will make a donation directly to the Independent American Party's conference on the 15th, for every $100 you contribute, I will see that you get a Caesar Augustus gold round. That way, you're making a donation that makes it possible for people to hear all of the candidates, including from the third parties or fourth parties or fifth parties, whatever. You'll get to hear them all, and you get something back besides. So, if you donate $200, you'll get 2 gold rounds. If you donate $1,000, you will get 10 gold rounds. That's a promise. And we'll see that happens. And you'll be making it possible for us to have the rally on the 15th that has already been planned. Now, you need to act immediately. And I can guarantee that you will get the gold round, and we'll give you a gold round for every $100 you donate to bring off this meeting. Just that simple. I'm just trying to think of the best way you can do it. Okay, write this down, please. You can make your checks payable to Mills Crenshaw for the rally, and I will make absolutely sure that it goes directly there for the rally. Or you can send it directly to the Independent American Party. I'm sure they're listed on Google, and just indicate on there that it's for the rally. But if you're going to send it to me, send it to Mills Crenshaw, and the address is 2083 West. That's 2083 West, 7125 South. That's 7125 South, West Jordan, Utah. West Jordan, Utah, and the zip is 84084. Now look, today is the 5th, so only 10 days from now we're planning the rally. That means that you need to respond immediately. And please, if you have ever been involved in any political activity, this is one that's well worthwhile, because this is an opportunity to hear from all of the candidates, not just one or two, and it won't be a debate. It'll simply be an open rally for all political candidates. And we want you on the steps of the state capitol at 4 p.m. on the 14th. Bring your Bibles and your guns. You're invited, everyone, and from every state. If you've got relatives or friends in nearby states, invite them to show up on that day. Arrange transportation if you have friends that are having difficulty getting there. And you've got time. It's 4 p.m. on the 14th. And the very next day at the Southtown Mall, Southtown Expo Center, actually, And that's what we're getting the donations for, is so that we can have the gathering at the Southtown Expo, where you'll get a chance to hear from all of the candidates. And Rocky has already guaranteed he will be there, and my understanding is the Libertarian has been invited, and Trump and Hillary have been invited. But if you have access to Trump or to Hillary, one of the other ways that you can really help with this is to get through to them and convince them that they need to show up. Because if they will guarantee to be there, we have a commitment from a political group that the funding will be there to make sure it happens. But we need you to participate today. Not in a few days, not in a week, but today. And we know it can happen. But you're going to have to dig deep. And remember now, I personally will guarantee that for every $100 you contribute to this rally, I will see that you get a 1-gram gold round, a Caesar Augustus pure gold round. So that way you can contribute and end up with something permanent besides. And if you have any questions about this or anything else we've been discussing, give us a call right now. On your phone, if you're listening to this program on your phone, all you have to do is dial 5. Couldn't be easier. Just dial 5, and we'll take your call in the order in which it comes in. Now, I'll go on to some other topics. This is critical. You've got to understand that the liberals who want to control your life and the life of your children and your children's children, they're not playing games. For months, I have warned you that on the 30th of last month, the 30th of September, that the International Monetary Fund was going to launch a new basket of currency that would include the Chinese renminbi. Well, they did, exactly as we forecast. 4 p.m. on last Friday, the 30th, the International Monetary Fund announced the launch of their new special drawing rights and a valuation basket that included the Chinese renminbi. And the new currency amounts divvied up the values of the various currencies. And I found it fascinating that the renminbi was given full value. The easy way to give the comparison is to think in terms of dollars, because you're familiar with them. So the renminbi was given the equivalent of $1 plus a fraction. The US dollar, conversely, was given the value of 58 cents and a small fraction. But the worst of all was the British pound sterling. It was only given the value of 8 cents in this basket of currencies. The new renminbi was the big stick. They valued it at the equivalent of $1 plus. The Chinese yuan, the Japanese yen, was also hit very hard. And it was given a very small percentage of the dollar value. But to give you an idea of what's going on here. The US dollar was only given the value of 58 cents. Now, why is this important to you? Up until now, up until this announcement that happened on Friday, the US dollar was the trade big dog. Everybody that was involved in buying oil or wheat or any major commodity had to do so in dollars. That's no longer true. The big stick now is in the hands of the Chinese, and it's their yuan or their renminbi that has the greatest value. And it can be a direct purchase in either of those currencies, either in the special drawing rights if they have access to them, or in the Chinese renminbi. And our president sold us out at the Shanghai Accords. At the Shanghai meeting that Obama attended, it was agreed that everybody would dump their dollar. And they're going to be shipping them back. Now, conversely, at the very same time, there is a run on gold. And the big banks, once again, are playing fast and loose, and they have issued puts. They're selling gold that they don't have, paper gold, in order to reap profits on the run-up of hard gold, and they are scooping up tons of hard gold from the smelters. And I'm not speculating on this. I got that word this morning directly from a man at the mint itself that I've worked with for years. And he has seen the trucks from the banks showing up at the smelters. And the banks are even buying 0.995 gold. 295 gold. And to be pure, it must be 49s fine, which is what our mint requires on all of its coins. If you ignore what I've just said, you are being very, very foolish. I cannot emphasize how foolish you're being. Telephone number again, 701-801-0829. And once you hear the program, you can listen free on any phone anywhere. No special equipment required. Now, we'll be making some additional announcements in upcoming days about other means to listen, and it'll be fun. But for right now, you don't need any special equipment. Any phone will do it. Just dial 701-801-0829. And once you do, you'll be able to hear the show. And once you hear the show, to talk on the air, all you have to do is dial 5. And that will not disconnect you. You'll continue to listen to the show until we bring you up to talk. And we'll take your calls in the order in which we receive them. Once again, once you hear the show on your phone, all you have to do is dial 5. And we will see your call at that point. We'll bring you up. And afterwards, you can continue to listen on your phone. No special equipment required. Now, are you familiar with the name Jonathan Cahn? Well, Jonathan Cahn is one of America's best-known Messianic rabbis. And he's the author of the New York Times best-selling story, The Harbinger. which was on the bestseller list for more than 100 weeks in 2012 and 2013. And in 2014, he's the author of The Mystery of the Shemitah. And he also became a New York Times bestseller. His latest, The Book of Mysteries, was once again one of the bestsellers in its first week of release. Now, why am I giving you all this background on Jonathan Cahn? We've been trying to get Jonathan on the air. But in his book, The Harbinger, he talks about the warning signs that were given to the nation of Israel. And he talks about the fact that another harbinger has appeared in the land, and this one in New York City. Some of you already know where I'm headed on this. In Israel's last days, prophetic warnings and signs and harbingers appeared in the land, foreshadowing the judgments to come. Unfortunately, the Jews ignored those harbingers and went into destruction. In the book, The Harbinger, the mystery is revealed that some of those same harbingers and warnings of national judgment have now appeared on American soil. In the ancient case, Israel ignored those warnings and plunged ever deeper into apostasy, immorality, ungodliness, and brazen defiance of God. Why am I telling you this? Because we're following the same exact template of judgment, the same course, in the same progression. Now, Israel's defiance of God was linked to a specific entity, the god Baal. And Baal was actually the god to whom they sacrificed their children, before whom they practiced sexual immorality. They called good evil and evil good. Baal was the god in whose name Israel persecuted the prophets and the handful of righteous people in their day. Baal was in effect their anti-god, their substitute for the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the God of their apostasy and the God of their destruction was Baal. And he was more or less their devil god. In fact, the names for Satan, Beelzebub and Beelzebul, are all derived from Baal, meaning Baal of the flies and Baal of excrement. So in the template, the harbinger, when the judgment finally fell, when the ancient kingdom of Israel was wiped off the earth, people were worshiping Baal. And the last days of Israel, images of Baal were all over the land. It was the worship of Baal that ultimately brought about the harbinger of judgment. And so in that regard, Baal was the god of the harbingers. Now, all of Jonathan Cahn's inspirational books and films on prophecy in the Bible, including his latest bestseller, the Book of Mysteries, which are all available online and available at a number of bookstores as well. I want you to think about this, because America is following in the footsteps of ancient Israel away from God, and we're headed toward the same kind of judgment. And could there possibly be a link to Baal? Of course there is. And no one in America would admit to worshiping Baal, but the truth is, our entire culture is filled with other gods and idols, including men who practice a rite called football on Sunday. And when a civilization turns away from God, always ends up bringing in these other gods in the Lord's place. We just don't call them gods. Now, as much as America has driven the Lord out of our life and waged war against his ways, and as much as America has sacrificed millions of unborn children in abortions, and as much as we have called evil good and good evil, and as much as it has celebrated sexual immorality, and as much as we have persecuted the righteous, we're also following after the god Baal. And they just announced a statue built into a triumphal arch in New York City in America. And guess whose image is there? That's right. The god Baal. We're going right down that path. Madness. Insanity. But that's what we're doing. How many times has the Lord warned us he won't be mocked? What do you think's going to occur? Yawn, oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, right. How corrupt have we become? Well, it turns out that Department of Justice side agreements let agents destroy laptops in the Clinton email case. That's right. Department of Justice agreements. And there are House Republicans who want to know why the heck the Justice Department officials entered into a pair of side agreements with Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson, two of Hillary's very top aides and lieutenants, who went on to become their personal attorneys, according to the FBI email investigation that allowed law enforcement agencies to destroy their laptops after searching their hard drives for evidence. Now, a letter from the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte to Attorney General Loretta Lynch on Monday. Goodlatte questioned why the destruction of the laptops used to sort Clinton's emails was included in an immunity deal that already protected Mills and Samuelson from prosecution based on the recoveries from their computers. And like a lot of things in this case, these new materials raise more questions than answers. Goodlatte wrote that about the side agreements, which lawmakers were allowed to read even though they have not yet been released in full to members of Congress. The House Oversight Committee exposed publicly the immunity agreements that were given to Mills and Samuelson last month, and critics have already questioned why the two Clinton aides were permitted to accompany Clinton to her early July interview with the FBI. Now think about that. They actually went with her to the FBI, and they said, well, it was because the interview was voluntary and that investigators had no control over who Clinton brought with her. And that, of course, is nonsense. In his letter, Goodlatte noted that the immunity agreements revealed that the FBI's agents were limited to documents authored before January of 2015. And the Republican chairman argued that such parameters prevented investigators from examining potential proof of the destruction of evidence that may have occurred after that date, and that the deals offered to Mills and Samuelson already protected the aides from prosecution related to their alleged roles. An attorney representing both Mills and Samuelson negotiated immunity deals for the Clinton aides before agreeing to hand over their laptops, and part of that agreement was that the agents would destroy the laptops. What's going on? Just how corrupt is our government after all? Now, today is the 5th, and I've got a notice from Addison Wiggin on his blog called The Daily Reckoning. And he warns that you've got to take action before tomorrow. And you've heard me refer to Jim Rickards and the fact that he has successfully and faithfully give warnings in advance of several major collapses. I'll just read this to you. Hi, Jim Rickards here with an urgent message. And any people who have been following me know that I don't do guesswork. As a global macroeconomist, I use the best information I have to generate forecasts and probability models. Well, one of my models is screaming right now. That's right. I'm talking about the potential collapse of Deutsche Bank. You've heard me talk about Deutsche Bank. One of the Eurozone's largest investment banks. Now, in unfolding before our eyes, his warning continues, it's eerily similar to the nasty Lehman Brothers collapse in 2008. And if it plays out the same way, it could be much worse for the global monetary system. And this big bank failure could have very grave consequences for you and for your family. The truth is, waiting to hear this on the nightly news is going to be catastrophic. That's why I am taking the unusual course of warning you to take action before tomorrow, before October 6th. You see, this high probability event with the Deutsche Bank could spark the next massive run on gold, similar to what happened in late 2008, just before gold more than doubled. This is urgent, and that's why I'm willing to go to extreme measures to get you on board. Since I want you to get caught up on this gold opportunity, and he goes on to make a specific offer to sign up for his newsletter. Well, we're not trying to sell you his newsletter. But what I am trying to do is get you to take action. It's imperative that you understand that this is going to have catastrophic impact on the finances of the entire world. I also earlier shared with you what's happening in the banks. They know what's going on. They know that Deutsche Bank is about to fail, and that's why they're loading up on gold and silver. And they are taking firm action. They're dealing directly with the smelters and the refiners. And if there's anybody out there that has really been paying attention and doesn't want to get caught in the collapse of the dollar, you can call me. You'll have to call me after I get off the air, but I'll take your calls up until midnight. That's not a problem. And the number to reach me is 801-706-2256. And yes, I can take your check and convert the dollars that way. I can even do it with the credit or debit cards. The problem with that is the banks charge a 4% service fee when you use your debit card or your credit card to buy gold and silver, and I have no choice. I have to pass that on. Remember I told you about the International Monetary Fund last Friday announced the values of their new basket of currency. Well, I have the hard numbers in front of me. Now, I'm giving you the dollar equivalent because what they did was they took 5 currencies, put them in a basket, and assigned a value to each. These currency amounts are calculated so that the value of the special drawing rights in dollar terms is the same under the new basket as the value of the SDR prevailing today, and that at the average exchange rates for the 3-month period ending today, July 1st through September 30th, the date this was written. The share of each currency in the value of the SDR corresponds to the weight approved by the International Monetary Fund Executive Board on November 30th of 2015. And the board's decision on the amount of each currency in the basket is the final step toward implementing the results of the latest review of the method of valuation. Here are the relative values. The US dollar was weighed at 58 cents and 252 thousandths. The euro was given the weight of only 38 cents plus 671 thousandths. The Chinese yuan was given $1.02. The Japanese yen was given $11.90. So that's the big stick, the Japanese yen. And the pound sterling was only 8.6 cents. Now, their final decision on the amount of each currency in the special drawing rights valuation is that final step in implementing the results of their latest review of the methods of valuation of each of these currencies. The special drawing rate, interest rate, will be determined on October the 7th. Today's the 5th, so in 2 days. And it will be applied for the week of October 10. And that's going to be the first one that reflects the new SDR, I should say, valuation basket, and includes a representative of the previous week. Now, what does all this stuff mean? Let's cut to the chase. Well, I will tell you what the warnings were that we were given over a week ago and that I shared with this audience. We were told that ultimately it's going to mean a 60% sudden loss in the value of the stocks. And it's going to mean the destruction of the US dollar, because at the meeting that was held in Shanghai, the Shanghai Accords, the agreements that were reached there was that all of the countries agreed that they would dump the dollar in favor of these special drawing rights. So instantly your dollars become worth 58 cents. You ready to lose almost 40% or a little over 40% of the buying power overnight? That's what it means. Your dollars are going to be worth the next day after all of the dust settles. Once this hits, your dollars are going to buy at least 40% less than they do today. Welcome to a brave new world. If you'd like to comment, just dial 5. If you're listening on your phone, if you're listening on your computer, grab a phone and call 701-801-0829. 701 and then 801-0829. 701-801-0829. And once you hear the show on your phone, then dial 5. Just that simple. Now, I want to hear from you, so give me a call. I want to also talk to you about what your plans are for the future. For years now, I have been telling people that you need to get food, warm clothing and shelter, arms and ammunition, and gold and silver in that order. I have mentioned it in the past, but I haven't made a big deal out of it. And I want you to know that the most important thing of all is a means of purifying water. Now, realistically, it's almost impossible for you to take water with you. And a lot of us are concerned about bugging out. The fact that there will be a call out and people from this part of the world and around the world are going to be asked to leave and move into areas euphemistically called tent cities. But cities of light, cities of refuge, where we can gather together and send out guards that can guard the camp and keep us safe. Now, if you're thinking you can be safe right at your home, you're out of your mind. Now, let me explain why. What happened in Baltimore when there were riots? Were people safe there? No. And when the evil people who are calling good evil and evil good, the worshipers of Baal or their equivalent in this society, when they take hold of things, you think you're going to be safe in the city? When the trucks stop running and stop bringing foodstuffs on the store shelves, it's going to take what, 3 hours for a store to be empty, never to be refilled? Where are you going to go? What are you going to buy? And if you're a merchant and you get a shipment of food or anything of value, are you going to sell it for paper? Would you? Not likely. Not likely at all. It's going to be more like Germany was, where it will take a wheelbarrow full of money to buy anything. It's coming. Now, speaking of water, we've made a deal with Seychelles water filters. I talked this morning to our webmaster. They are working on our website. Soon they will have it up, but they can't give me a firm date. They are working on it. They realize how important it is. And once we get that up, you will be able to see all of the products that are available from Seychelles. And the reason I mention Seychelles is because they have very lightweight water filters, easy to take with you. A child can carry them and not even know that they're carrying something that important. One of the neat products they have is something called Pump to Pure. And the Pump to Pure weighs a pound, maybe 2. Very, very lightweight. It's a hand pump, and you put one end in scummy, dirty water, and out comes, on the other end comes clean, drinkable, potable water. And the pump is so light you can carry it with you, and it doesn't matter how scummy, how dirty the pond is. It has a multi-stage filter that will give you pure, drinkable water. About $70. I'm rounding it. About $70 a piece. And if you want to place an order, again, you can mail the order to me, Mills Crenshaw, at 2083 West, 7125 South, West Jordan, Utah, and the zip is 84084. Now, once our website is up, you'll be able to buy it right on our store. But we'll have these for you in just 2 or 3 days. We've already got a shipment coming in, and I expect it any day now. But they're going to go out the door as quickly as we get them in. And you don't know when this is going to hit, but it's coming. You can live for 30 days without food. It won't be any fun. I don't recommend it. But you know how long you can live without pure water, drinkable water? 3 days and you're toast. So this is not something you want to risk. And the Pump to Pure is good for 100 to 150 gallons, and then you have to change the filters. So you want at least 1, maybe up to 3 extra filters in order to have pure water. And remember now, we're just talking about drinking water. And the biggest membrane on your entire body is your outer skin. And if you're taking showers in grimy, bacteria-laden water, that can get through your skin. And if you want to be able to bathe in pure water, you're going to need extra filters. And those are about $30 a piece. So plan $70 for the Pump to Pure itself, and rounding it to the nearest dollar, about $30 a piece for the extra filters. And we'll get them to you the minute they get in, and we can get these for you. There will be other products. They've got, for example, bottles. They're like sports bottles. And they are so powerful you can scoop water right out of a ditch and safely drink it through the nipple on that bottle. is there's a multi-stage filter attached to the nipple itself. And that is a very convenient. They also have a straw. No, you don't want life straws. You've heard about them. A lot of ads. But I want you to understand that these filters can save your life. They can turn brackish water into safe drinking water. They are so powerful that you could go up to a scummy pond that has frogs jumping in it and put one end of the pump in that pond and safely drink the water that comes out the other side. So pure that you could bathe in it if you wanted, safely. Don't put it off. The address again, send it to Mills Crenshaw, 2083 West. That's 2083 West. 7125 South. 71235 South. West Jordan, Utah. And the zip is 84084. 84084. And we'll get those to you right away. Yeah, you're welcome. Remember, you can live for 30 days without food. I don't recommend it. Wouldn't be any fun. But you can survive that long without food. But in 3 days, if you don't have pure water, you are toast. One joker said, well, let them drink Coke. Yeah, right. The inventor of Seychelles water filters is the man who invented the reverse osmosis system used by Coca-Cola or any other bottler in the world. I've had him on my show. And he is the man who invented the life straw. And when I suggested that we were going to carry those, he laughed and said, no, you don't want the life straw because they clog after 3 uses. What you want is a new straw-like filter that I've invented, and we can get those as well. Those are about $17, $18 a piece. They're good for 25 gallons. And they're just like an oversized pen in your pocket, but they have the filter attached. We will continue to bring you all of this information and we'll answer any questions you've got. You're listening to Drive Time Live, the Mills Crenshaw Show on talkradio1.us. talkradio1.us. And you also can listen to us on Facebook. And on Facebook, just Talk Radio 1. We very soon now, we will also enable you to both listen and talk on Skype. I misspoke. I'm sorry. It's you're able to listen now on YouTube, not Facebook. My error. Yeah, you are able to watch or listen to the show on YouTube. Eventually, we're going to have a camera in studio, and you will be able to both watch and listen. Eventually, we're going to be on Skype as well. All of these things are coming, but these are brand new developments. This is new equipment. I've been on the air for more than 50 years. And I personally believe that the voice of freedom needs to be heard. And That's why I continue to do this long after most guys would retire. One of my personal heroes was Paul Harvey. And Paul Harvey passed away last year at age 94, and he passed away at the microphone. That's kind of a consummation devoutly to be wished. So, you can listen on your computer, you can listen on YouTube. Soon you will be able to hear us on Skype. And I want to hear from you. Now, if you're listening on a phone, all you have to do to dial in and talk on the air is dial 5. Now, if you are listening on your computer or on YouTube, good on you, we appreciate that. But in order to talk on the air, you're going to have to make a phone call. If you're using a landline, a phone that's connected to your wall, dial 1, and then the rest of the number. If you're using a cell phone, you don't need to dial 1. Just dial the rest of the number, which is 701-801-0829. Too fast? I'll give it more slowly. 701-801-0829. Then you'll be able to hear the show on your phone, and once you hear the phone, if you hear the show on your phone, then just dial 5. That tells our computer that you're ready to talk. And we will bring you aboard, welcome you, and listen to what you have to say. And it's really a lot of fun. We want to hear from you. And the stories we do and the follow-up on them are largely a result of the feedback we get from you. So again, just dial 5. Now, I keep coming back to this because it troubles me. It troubles me deeply. I'm talking now about that harbinger of bail that occurred in New York City. I can't imagine the foolishness that existed within the council that approved that triumphal arch with the image of bail on it in New York. It's sort of like standing in front of a bull and waving a bright-colored kerchief. I understand that bulls are colorblind, so the color red, it doesn't do it, but the bright colors do. And it's asking for destruction, begging for it, if you will. Here we are. We're calling evil good and good evil, and what are you going to do about it? Well, you're about to find out. And it's not going to be any fun. You've heard Mr. Dearden on our airwaves. He is the candidate that is running on the same ticket with Dale Shaughnessy. He's running for lieutenant governor. And Dale Shaughnessy is running for governor. I want to get Dale back on. Gregory Dearden, of course, is the IAP candidate for lieutenant governor of the state of Utah, and for many years he was a newspaperman in Utah, in Colorado, Wyoming, California. Worked as a publisher, editor, managing editor, reporter, staff writer, columnist, and he understands what the heck is going on. We've got a caller. Let's go to this caller. 801 area, prefix 298. Caller, your first name.
Steve.
Welcome, Steve. Glad to hear from you.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the debate last night.
Yeah. What was your impression?
Well, I think this time Pence was the clear winner. And secondly, Pence's answers, well, before I say that, let me say this. I don't think a presidential debate is about who wins or who loses. It's for the people to find out where the candidates stand. But with that said, Pence impressed me so much with his answers, I think Trump and him need to flip what they're doing. In other words, Pence should run for president and Trump should be the VP.
There are a lot of people who would agree with you. But to his credit, Pence gives all of the praise and all of the recognition to the top man on the ticket, Trump. And I think that's one of his enduring qualities.
Yeah. That's all I can say is I think he was really, really impressive last night.
Well, what did you think of the Democrat candidate?
Well, he interrupted a lot more than Trump was accused of interrupting on his debate. I saw the counts today.
Over
he
72
I think
times.
It was 71 times.
The account I saw said 72.
Yeah. So, but it was a lot. So, I think what we've got a lot of in this campaign is the pot calling the kettle black, and especially from the Democrat side, they're accusing the Trump camp of things that they're guilty of themselves.
Do you know where that comes from? That is.
Did we talk about that yesterday?
Yeah, that's
the
one.
Adulterous woman.
That is one of the stratagems presented by Saul Alinsky. And Saul Alinsky, of course, was talking about the means of creating a socialist republic out of a democracy. And he has a series of steps. And one of the steps is one of those steps is to accuse your opponent of things that you yourself are doing. And guess who Hillary had as a hero when she was in college? She wrote her thesis on Saul Alinsky.
Yeah, it's important. I'm reminded of what Zig Ziglar used to say here. When you point a finger at somebody, there's three fingers pointing back at you.
True.
And another thing, you look at all this, and I still remember what my 9th grade geography teacher said. He said, capitalism is becoming more communistic. And this was back in, roughly 1971, 72. That's how long ago it was. And that the communist Russia is becoming more capitalistic. I'll never forget that because that's exactly what I'm seeing today. Russia may be moving back the other direction again, but still, it was a prophetic statement.
Well, no, Russia is not becoming more socialistic. They are becoming more aggressive. But the
Okay. Yeah.
nature of that aggression is interestingly a very selfish form of aggression. And the one
Yeah.
major criticism of capitalism is that it is basically a selfish doctrine. Anything wrong with that?
I'm not sure I follow where you're going with this.
Well, Maggie Thatcher said it best. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money.
Yes,
And
that's true.
when people want things for free, it is destructive of the entire social scheme. There's nothing wrong with people trading for equal things of equal value. If you are happy with a deal that you make with somebody else, and it doesn't matter what you're trading, whether you're trading beans or rice or paper clips or banana peels, if you're both happy with the exchange, nobody gets robbed, right?
That's right.
As long as both people are happy with the transaction. The problem with socialism is it takes from you your efforts and gives it to somebody else who makes no effort at all. And it's basically a form of robbery. Has to be, because it's taking by force from one person and giving it with nothing else of value in exchange, giving it to a third party. And that makes it inherently evil. Now,
Yeah.
if you give to somebody else out of the goodness of your heart, you're not robbed because you're doing something you want to do. You're not being forced to do it. But the minute government gets involved, then it's force and it's inherently evil.
Yeah. Yeah, now I understand where you're going with this, and I think you're exactly right on that. Let's talk about trade for a minute. One of my hobbies, I've done a bunch of trades in it. No, I did not get what I paid out of whatever I traded, but I was happy with the trade because I had items I could not use anymore or did not desire to use anymore. And I was able to trade them for something that I wanted or needed to make me enjoy the hobby a lot more.
Excellent example. I think that's a great example. Look, I have been saying for some time to people, I've been asking a question that should be on everybody's mind. If you are a merchant and you have something of value, I don't care what it is, bread, beans, cheese, tools, arms, ammunition, whatever you've got that has value, are you going to sell it to somebody for paper? Not likely. But
Yeah.
for a while, you're going to be willing to trade it for precious metals because they have always represented wealth. They have always represented value.
Yeah.
But eventually, the only thing that's going to have value will be food and arms and ammunition and trade goods.
Yeah. Let me give you another example. This happened right after 9/11. I'll tell you the hobby. It's model railroading. I like to play with trains. I went into the hobby shop, and this was right before 9/11 when I went in there. And I saw this train engine I wanted for $800, about $800. I know that's a lot of money. My wife wants me committed for buying it. but he let me put it on layaway. And the $800 was actually allocated for something else of a fun nature. And I decided to switch gears on that. And but he let me put it on layaway for 30 days during it because he didn't want to sell it to a guy that wanted to trade other goods for it. He wanted the cash. Well, within 30 days, I was able to come up with the cash. Well, in that period, 9/11 happens, and my first thought was, well, do I get out of this or do I stay in it? And my thought was, and then I thought, look, life has to go on. So I went through with the deal, and I still have the locomotive today. And I really enjoy running it when I run it.
Okay, you got full value then, didn't you?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So neither you were cheated nor was the guy that sold it to you.
Yeah, and he didn't want to make a trade. He wanted cash. But I think we all know if you're in the hobby business like that, trains, radio control stuff, rockets, whatever, the margins are pretty low in that business, so it is hard to do trades. I've got a dealer that is willing to do trades, but, sometimes that's a little difficult with her, too, because she discounts everything, and so she can't do a whole lot of that.
Well, again, as long as the two of you can come to a mutual understanding and a mutual agreement, as long as you both are happy with the deal. Look, people forget this, but in the early days of this country, if you lived out in the sticks, you may have had a farm or something, or a ranch, and when you needed things, you went into town and you would bargain with the store owner. And if you had a creek running in your backyard and you panned for a little gold, you'd bring your gold dust in and you'd pour it out on a scale, and then you'd dicker. It wasn't legal tender, but the store owner knew it had value, and so you'd bargain back and forth. Okay, I've got 2.5 ounces of gold here. What can I buy for that? How many beans can I buy for that? Or how much coffee or whatever it is that you were after? The store owner would make a trade, a barter transaction, and that is where we're headed, because this whole system's going to break down. And paper money is going to become useless. And that's why I keep asking the question. If you had something of value that you were going to sell, I don't care what it is, arms, ammunition, bread, milk, anything that's of value, are you going to sell it for paper?
Absolutely not. And I think you recall the amount of gold and silver you sold me a little while back. But, I just have to say to everybody listening, I'm glad I have it.
Yeah. And I'm getting people almost on a daily basis now who are calling to get something of value because they realize this paper stuff is going to disappear on them.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, I'm glad you called.
Well, thank you. We've talked about a few things tonight, and I really don't have anything else to talk about.
Well, I really appreciate your sharing your views. I watched that debate last night, and I kept thinking somebody needs to spank that spoiled kid that keeps interrupting. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. But, yeah, I just say I was really impressed with Pence.
Yeah. I agree with what you said about his being very presidential. There's no question about it. And those people who are thinking of voting for Hillary, remember her health is bad, and look at the clown that she has running with her. Do you really want that guy to be the president? And look at the guy who's running with Trump. Among other things, he will help Trump formulate policy, and he is very presidential.
Yes. And I'll say this again. I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again for those that didn't hear me the first time. I believe that Hillary's health is so bad that the stresses of the presidency is either going to claim her life or force her to resign. One of those two things. I don't know which it'll be, but it'll be one of them.
Agreed. Appreciate the call. Thank you.
Goodbye, Mills.
Bye-bye. Okay, I want to hear from you. And if you are listening on your phone, all you have to do is do what Steve did. Just dial 5. And that will bring you up. And if you're listening on your computer, pick up the nearest phone and dial 701-801-0829. 701-801-0829. And when you hear the show on your phone, dial 5. Just that simple. And we have a lot we can talk about. We've already talked about Bill Clinton's love child. I wonder if that kid will ever get to meet Bill Clinton. All he wants to do is shake his hand and say, "Hi, Dad." And you would think that that's a small enough request that even a Clinton could grasp that and could grant that wish. But who knows? Who knows if that very simple wish will ever be granted? Kind of sad, however. Now, don't forget, tomorrow is Thursday Blue. And, of course, we will give away a hardcover copy of Deep Cover Cop. Now, that is Ted Sumner's book. I helped him write it. And, there are some fantastic stories. Fun stuff. And there are a couple of guests that are already lined up for tomorrow. Let me give you a little sample of what we're talking about. This is from page 130 in the book. Ted Sumner began his career with the San Jose Police Department, eager as hell. His martial arts training had won him a few friends in the academy and even more enemies. In the highly competitive atmosphere of the academy, that's the police academy, anything that resulted in an edge cut two ways. Once he graduated, he had the good fortune to draw Ben Kephart as his training officer. Kephart was a no-nonsense individual, by-the-book professional who'd added some common sense to his understanding of departmental rules. And as a result, Sumner started out with a clear-eyed understanding of where the boundaries lay. And the excitement of his recent graduation was beginning to fade. The lessons of his first training week were actually beginning to sink in. It was the last day of his first week in field training. They were working on the graveyard shift on the west side of town, and it was just after midnight when the call came in. 8216, that was their call sign. Kephart nodded for Sumner to answer the call, and Sumner grabbed the pen from his clipboard, keyed the mic, and responded, 8216. 8216, investigate report of 415 1072. Well, 10 was code for disturbance and stabbing, and at the phrase 3, bar corner of the Moore Park and Saratoga, handled code 2. That means light but no siren. 8216 10-4, meaning they will comply. Sumner hung up the mic. Kephart had already flipped on the light bar and was already making a U-turn. He resettled himself in the seat, hunched forward to the steering wheel. His tone of voice was used whenever there was a point he wanted to make sure his young trainee understood. Ted, what do you know about Phase 3 bar? Nothing, never heard of it. Okay, listen up. Phase 3 is a biker bar. They got a bad rep. Worse people. Keep your head up, your mouth closed. Don't act tough, but don't get pushed around either. There's nothing you can say that will impress any of these animals. They're already on the prod. We watch each other's back at all times. Clear? Clear. Well, the warm glow of apprehension started in Sumner's gut and worked its way upward. It wasn't fear, but rather the anticipation of combat, that hyper-awareness that put all of his faculties on high alert. His Kempo instructors had taught him that before a match to control that apprehension and channel the energy by controlling his breathing. So he took several deep breaths, took several more deep breaths. Then he held his breath, repeating the process until he could hold his breath for 60 seconds. And this put him into a deep breathing pattern that energized his body and focused his mind, and now he was ready for action. The almost deserted streets raced by, patrol cars, flashing lights, reflecting off store windows, and Kephart turned onto Saratoga Avenue and immediately pulled into the Phase 3 parking lot. Sumner spotted two men standing just outside the entrance and pointed. Kephart nodded. He grabbed the mic and reported in control, 8216 1097. 8216 10-4. So both officers exited the patrol unit and approached the two men standing at the entrance. You make the call? Kephart asked. The taller of the two stepped forward. Damn right, that son of a bitch had no call to knife the guy. He weren't causing no trouble, just up and knifed him like a hog or something. Where's the victim? Sumner asked. The smaller of the two men jutted his chin in the direction of the street and offered he crawl down that way. Sumner looked at his training officer with a questioning look. Kephart nodded and returned to his clipboard. We appreciate your cooperation, sir. Let me get some personal information. Well, Kephart took the witness's personal information as Sumner switched on his flashlight and began to sweep the parking lot, starting at the entrance. Quickly located a trail of blood. At a crisp walk, he followed the trail of blood across the parking lot, down the street, and into a family pizza parlor. Cautiously, he entered the warmth of the restaurant and was confronted by the unconscious, bleeding body of the victim lying face down on the floor. The appalled patrons had reeled back in horror from this ghastly intrusion on their evening, but no one had thought to render aid to the wounded stranger in the midst or even call the cops. Sumner grabbed a man wearing an apron by the arm, shook him to focus his attention, took a field card from his blouse and handed the card to the employee. Here, Sumner said firmly, call this number. It's police dispatch. There's an ambulance on its way to the bar down the street. Tell them the officer Sumner wants it routed here to the pizza parlor. Tell them the officer and the victim are here. Give them your address. Got that?" Man nodded, turned to the phone by the cash register. Sumner turned back to the man on the floor and attempted to stop the bleeding. He ripped the man's shirt into bandages, packed the wounds as best he could. One forearm wound required pressure, so Sumner removed the man's belt and tightened it just enough that the bleeding slowed down to a slight oozing. When the ambulance arrived, he left the work to the EMTs and returned to the bar. Now, as he approached, Kephart asked, "What do we got?" "Multiple stab wounds to the abdomen, pretty bad shape. But the MTs think he'll pull through." Kephart responded. "We'll put it down as an attempted murder. I've got the personal data on the witness. You take down their statements. They can identify the assailant. And as soon as our Phil gets here, we'll go into the bar and take him into custody." Sumner tucked his 5-cell Kel light under his arm, took a Form 2 crime report from the bottom of the clipboard, clipped it in place, and began writing down the witness's statement. As he was writing, he noticed a huge white male in his mid-20s had moved into position on his right. Instinctively, Sumner shifted his position slightly so as to have an unobstructed view of this new individual out of the corner of his eye. The guy was ripped, obviously a weightlifter. The tight T-shirt he wore said he was trying to impress people with how powerful he was. Suddenly, the subject took a step forward and slammed a punch into the witness's mouth, shattering his teeth. In an instant, Sumner had dropped the clipboard, snatched his Kel light into his right hand, pivoted to face the attacker, who now raised both clenched fists into a classic boxer stance. The sneer on his face clearly stated his intent. The assailant dropped his shoulder as he began a roundhouse punch at the officer. With lightning speed, Sumner brought his light slashing down on the attacker's right fist, shattering his knuckles. He then whipped the light around in a tight circular motion, striking the man's left wrist. Continuing the motion, this time he struck the left elbow and continued the motion, slashing with a blow to the attacker's left knee, knocking him to the ground. Now bikers began pouring out of the bar, some wearing Hell's Angels colors. Without preamble, they began punching and kicking at both Sumner and Kephart in a mindless attempt to liberate Sumner's prisoner. Sumner yanked his handcuffed prisoner to his feet and used him as a shield as he and his training officer fought a retreating action in the direction of their car. And at that moment came the unmistakable roar of the 440 cubic inch engines of the police cars. No music had ever sounded as sweet as the snarl of those high-powered engines. From the shadows across the street, 3 unmarked police vehicles roared across the street into the parking lot, screeching to a halt at the edge of the melee. My error. Doors flew open, and from each of the unmarked cars emerged a battle-hardened member of the elite San Jose SWAT team known as Merge. Each SWAT officer was equipped with a 42-inch Boken stick, with which they proceeded to systematically and methodically pummel the perpetrators that had become a rapidly escalating riot. The business-like precision with which the SWAT officers demolished the riot was a marvel to behold. Sumner would carry that picture in his mind for the balance of his career. Sumner's appreciation was cut short when his training officer yelled, "Let's get him out of here." They threw the prisoner in the back of the patrol car, headed to the hospital to get his injuries treated and to check on the disposition of the victim. They pulled out of the driveway. Sumner glanced back and caught a glimpse of the SWAT team dispatching the remaining fragments of the crowd with the precision of a Spartan phalanx. As they drove toward the hospital, Sumner glanced toward his training officer for any sign of reproof or encouragement. Kempner might as well have been a model for the Sphinx. They arrived at Valley Medical Center Hospital at the same time as their Phil unit, that had taken the stabbing victim into custody at the bar. They escorted the prisoners under guard to the treatment room where they were shackled to the bed while undergoing emergency treatment. Sumner's prisoner was treated for 5 broken bones in his right hand, a broken left wrist, and severe contusions to his left elbow. Sumner used the desk at the hospital waiting room to work on his report. And while writing his report, he heard his training officer tell another veteran officer, "Hey, the kid took his first rat." "Yeah, the kid tangled with the prez," replied Officer Lipsky. "No blank. The prez?" said a surprised Kephart. "Filthy Phil himself." Later on their way to the station, Sumner asked, "What did he mean about my taking on the prez?" Kephart turned to his trainee in mock surprise. "You didn't know? Why, kid, you arrested the head rat, Phil Cross, a.k.a. Filthy Phil. He's the president of the local chapter of the Hells Angels." Then Ben Kephart threw back his head and laughed out loud, which was the first time Sumner had ever heard his training officer laugh. What I've just shared with you is one of hundreds of episodes in Deep Cover Cop, and it's all true. Not an excessive word of description was used in developing this book. Every incident that Ted lived through was repeated and repeated until we had it down exactly the way it happened. And that's why I warn you, when you get a copy of Deep Cover Cop, don't start it if you've got something very important you have to get to the next day, because you're not going to want to put it down. It's that kind of book. Once you start it, you're going to want to read it cover to cover. Oh, I guess you can pull yourself away if you got a lot of self-control. But you're going to need it. I can tell you, as the one that worked with Ted to help write this book, that I couldn't wait to get to the next session. But I did repeatedly ask him, "How did you ever get out of this alive?" And there are a lot of accounts just like that in the book. Oh, I know, I've shared a few, but we haven't even scratched the surface of what's contained in Deep Cover Cop, a true story told by Ted Sumner to Mills Crenshaw. We will give away a copy tomorrow to one of the callers. So even if you're timid about calling in, I promise you it's going to be worth the effort tomorrow, because we're going to be giving away this copy that I've got sitting here on the desk. And it's going to become one of your treasures, I promise you. Okay, I have warned you about what is coming, time and time again. And it's fun to meet some of you. I met a couple of you earlier in the day today. Something that I mentioned yesterday that is so shocking it's worthy of repeating. There is a new law out, and this is the kind of madness that occurs when you allow liberals to gain control of your government. Now, even as I tell this, it's hard to believe. Now, the reason it's hard to believe is you can't imagine that anyone could be this stupid. But here's the new law. If you change a baby's diaper in the state of Arizona, you can now be convicted of child molestation. I kid you not. The Arizona Supreme Court issued a stunning and horrifying decision on Tuesday, interpreting a state law to criminalize any contact between an adult and a child's genitals. Now, according to the court, the law's sweep encompasses wholly innocent conduct, such as changing a diaper or bathing a baby. As the stinging dissent notes, parents and other caregivers in the state are now considered to be child molesters or sex abusers under Arizona law. Those convicted under the statute may be imprisoned for 5 years. How did this happen? Well, it was a combination of bad legislating and terrible judgment. Start with the legislature, which passed laws forbidding any person from intentionally or knowingly touching any part of the genitals, anus, or female breasts of a child under 15 years of age. Notice something odd about that? Although the laws call conduct child molestation or sex abuse, the statutes themselves don't require touching to be sexual in nature. No other state's law excludes that element of improper sexual intent. Indeed, read literally, the statute would prohibit parents from changing their child's diaper or cleaning up after them. And the measures both forbid direct and indirect touching, meaning they can't even bathe their child without becoming sexual abusers under the law. Stupid. Arizona Supreme Court had an opportunity to remedy this glaring problem. A man convicted under the law urged the judges to limit the statute's scope by interpreting the touching element to require some sexual intent, but by a 3-2 vote, the court refused and declared that they declined to rewrite the statutes to require the state to prove sexual motivation, when the statutes clearly contain no such requirement. Moreover, the court held that the laws pose no threat to due process because those prosecuted under the statute could still assert lack of sexual motivation as an affirmative defense. One defendant himself must prove to the jury by a preponderance of the evidence. And as to the risk that the law criminalizes parental tasks, the majority shrugged it off and gave a lame excuse. Now, look, I can't imagine anything more inane than this. Can you? Look at the things that Hillary has been allowed to get away with, and yet in California, a parent who changes their child's diapers can be locked up for 5 years. Hillary's carelessness or incompetence or whatever you want to dignify it as has allegedly cost the life of at least one individual who was named in one of her emails as giving information to the United States about the malfeasance that was going on in Iran, and that man was killed by the Iranian government. How else could they have known? Except for hacking these unsecured emails. Yet Hillary's allowed to run free. And in Arizona, a parent could be locked up for 5 years for changing their child's diapers. Can you imagine anything more inane than that? Pretty hard to fathom. I want to give you a reminder again about calling me later in the day. Last week I would have been teaching a class on Wednesday night, but we have shifted the Wednesday night martial arts class to Mondays because one of my advanced students had his work change, and he can't make it on Wednesday, so we're now doing Monday night on his night off. I've been seriously thinking about whether or not I would open up a women's self-defense class on that Wednesday night that's now open. And here's the problem as I see it. I thought I would start with the woman's rape class. Actually, that's a misnomer. The woman's rape defense class would be correct. The techniques that I teach are very severe, and any woman can do them. There are a couple of unusual elements about what I teach. I actually had one woman walk out on the class with words something to the effect, "I can't do that." Well, of course she could. Anyone can. It's not physically difficult. But it is severe. It's severe enough that any man who ever attacked one of the women that I have trained would never, ever in his life do it again. Never. I never will discuss on the air what the class entails, because I don't want the bad guys to know. Just that simple. What I will do is this. The class can be taught in a couple of hours in one night. It is a very simple but extremely effective defense against an attempted rape. And this introductory class is only a start, but it's something that you can learn in one night, in one class, and it will last you all of your life. Then if you want to learn additional self-defense techniques, you can take a beginner's class, and I teach a practical class in self-defense. Now, what's the difference between a practical class in self-defense and what you would learn at an ordinary beginner's class in Kempo? And by the way, Kempo is by far the most severe of all of the martial arts form. It's like the difference between a boxer and somebody with a gasoline-powered saw in their hands, chainsaw. Yeah, that's a pretty fair comparison. If you are interested in taking the women's rape defense class on a Wednesday evening at 8:30, you will need to contact me and let me know. I'll give you a couple of different ways you can contact me and let me know. And if I don't get enough women to fill the class, I will not hold it. The cost is only $20. It's a one-time cost, a one-time class. If you then want to continue on learning additional self-defense techniques, it's $100 a month, and we meet every Wednesday night. And again, I will only do it if I have enough students to make it worthwhile. I have to rent the studio. The class will be held at the Tony Martinez Karate Studio. Tony is one of my students, and he went on to open his own studio. Tony's a high-ranking black belt. He was the second man in my career that I turned black after 3 years of training. Tony is an excellent instructor, and his studio is immaculate. He has a couple of restrooms. There's a mat on the floor. He has 2 rubber dummies. We call them Bob. He has 2 versions of Bob, which is adjustable to different heights, and you can hit Bob as hard as you want to. He'll never complain. That's one of the reasons Bob is a featured guest. But here's the situation. Here's how you get in touch with me and let me know that you're interested in the class. The two ways are, I should say. You can email me. I will give you the email address in a moment, so grab something to write on and something to write with. Or you can call. You can either leave a message or you can send a message, or you can leave in a voice message, either way. Okay, my email, Mills Crenshaw, as one word, millscrenshaw.csh@gmail.com. Now I'll spell it for you. Mills is M-I-L-L-S, Crenshaw, C-R-E-N-S-H-A-W, dot C-S-H. Phonetically, that would be Charles, Sam, Henry, at gmail.com. millscrenshaw.csh@gmail.com. Just let me know if you're interested in taking the women's self-defense, the women's rape defense class, one Wednesday night at 8:30, not this Wednesday, not tonight. And let me know how many are going to be in your party. You and any number of friends that commit to come with you. That's fine. No upper limit. But there is a bottom limit. I've got to have 10 or more people or it doesn't pay for the rental. Okay, millscrenshaw.csh@gmail.com. Now, I will also give you my phone number. You can call and leave a message. You can send a text message to the same phone number. And again, all you have to do is give me your name and your phone number and the fact that you will come and how many will be in your party. Your husband or your fiance would be welcome to come to the class. They can observe at no cost. But I don't want any other unattached males in the room. I don't want them to know what I'm teaching. I want it to come as a terrible, terrible shock if they are foolish enough to assault one of the women that I train. Okay, here's my phone number, 801-706-2256. Again, 801-706-2256. You can also call that number if you're interested in gold or silver. Again, the number, 801-706-2256. And until my messages are filled, you can leave a voice message or you can just send a text. Let me know your name, your phone number, the fact that you will attend, you're willing to pay the $20 per person, and how many will be in your party. Just that simple. And I will look forward to hearing from you. We won't hold it tonight, of course, and probably not next week. I want to give a full week for people to sign up, so we're probably talking about beginning week after next. It'd be Wednesday night at 8:30. Tony's Karate Studio is on 35th South and approximately 4600 West. He's got a big sign just outside, lots of free parking, so that's not a problem. Now, the women who have taken this rape defense class before have raved about it, and people who have taken my practical self-defense course have been overjoyed. You learn something brand new every single class, and every single class what you learn is a practical self-defense technique that really works. You don't have to be magic, you don't have to be a black belt to make these things work. Every technique has been battle tested for real. They're all based on actual techniques. Okay, there's time for a last phone call if you'd like to call in. The telephone number for a call in, if you're not on a phone right now, is 701-801-0829. Again, 701-801-0829. And when you hear the show on the phone, dial 5. That will let us know that you're ready to talk, and we'll take you in the order in which you call in. Doesn't matter what topic you want to discuss. It can be last night's debate, anything else that's on your mind. And there are a goodly number. Now, those who have attended my rape defense class understand why I make the statement, any man foolish enough to attack a woman who has been trained in my defense techniques will never, ever do it again. They might even laugh out loud at that, but they understand what I'm saying, and it's a truth. Because many self-defense techniques require strength or precision. I teach a very practical form of self-defense, and the rape class is by far the most practical. And that class is designed so that any woman can exercise these techniques and save herself from a life of misery and regret. Just that simple. Again, the email address is Mills Crenshaw as one word, MILLSCRENSHAW.CSH. Phonetically, that is Charles Sam Henry at gmail.com. millscrenshaw.csh@gmail.com. My phone number, 801-706-2256. Just leave your name and phone number. The fact that you do want to attend that class. If you're also interested in taking the self-defense, practical self-defense class afterwards, you could so indicate. And how many will be in your party? So either email me or text message, or you can call the number and leave the information. If you're also interested or are just interested in gold and silver, you can use either of those two methods to get in touch with me, and I'll be more than happy to accommodate you. If there are no further phone calls, I will conclude with this. A lot of people are conversant with the Health Ranger. He's pretty prominent on the tube. He has a lot of followers. And the Health Ranger has issued an international financial alert Now, why the world would the health ranger, who talks about health issues and physical fitness and things like that, why would he be issuing an international financial alert? Very simple. He said, since 2008, I've been warning natural news readers about the inevitable, mathematically unavoidable global debt collapse. For the last 8 years, crooked politicians, criminal banksters, have been kicking the can down the road with endless money printing and currency debasement, and now it depends we're all out of road. Deutsche Bank now stands on the verge of financial collapse, and under the delusional, idiotic policies of Angela Merkel, which only are exceeded by the idiotic policies of Barack Obama, Deutsche Bank has vastly expanded its leveraged debt to the point of financial lunacy. Now, as marketticker.org explains, the derivatives debt exposure from Deutsche Bank is greater than all of the assets of the entire nation of Germany. And if you think Germany can bail out Deutsche Bank, you're delusional. Their total derivative exposure grossly exceeds the entire net value of everything in Germany, not just German resources, all private resources as well. In other words, even if the government wanted to bail them out, even if they'd survive bailing them out politically, they can't. Even if they attempted to confiscate everything of value within the German nation. Should Deutsche Bank collapse, the debt exposure from other banks that have purchased debt instruments from Deutsche would be catastrophic. And the collapse will ripple through the banking system like a raging firestorm, burning through deadwood. Watch the amazing film The Big Short, just for a tiny taste of what's to come. The derivatives debt collapse will absolutely dwarf the subprime mortgage collapse. By the way, I want to recommend The Big Short to any of you who have not seen it, because you will begin to understand what we're facing. Continuing the letter from the Health Ranger. A failure of Deutsche Bank would trigger a systematic banking contagion, the likes of which the Western world has never seen. So writes Jim Willey of silverdoctors.com. Unlike the collapse of Lehman Brothers in 2008, which the Western central banks were able to contain thanks to $13 trillion in bailout funds, a failure of Deutsche Bank would trigger a systematic banking contagion of enormous size, something the world has never seen. And my best German source informs me that 3 major banks in Germany are in trouble. 3 banks are fighting every single night to fight off insolvency and failure. The Citigroup in New York, Barclays in London, and Deutsche Bank owns $25 trillion in over-the-counter swaps with the central banks and other major banks. So exported daisy chains of derivative failures for the 1.6 quadrillion derivatives market. If it were to fail, Deutsche Bank cannot break down by itself. It would result in the complete breakdown of the European Monetary Union. It was all inevitable, of course, as marketticker.org explains. This is an unusual practice, since without expanding at a rate that exceeds expansion of debt, you must eventually stop, or the economy will contract even though debt is expanding. And once that begins to occur, it's a black hole event horizon from which you cannot escape until virtually everybody who is in debt has been liquidated, and those who hold that debt will take monstrous losses, in many cases 100% losses. If you don't understand what's happening, you'll be financially wiped out. I don't know how else to warn you about this. Many people are still delusional, thinking that since nothing has crashed since 2008, crashes can't happen. These people are about to be taught a very expensive lesson in economic reality. And the very same people who are living in debt denial right now will be the same ones flinging themselves off buildings and bridges when they're wiped out in the near future. 6 weeks ago, I released a new video explaining all this. It's called Faith Money and the Coming Collapse. You can watch it. You can seek to understand the catastrophic event that's about to unfold. Now, there's more, but I'm going to leave it at that. You need to understand that the end is right around the corner. No, I'm not kidding about this, and I'm not trying to be a naysayer, and I don't like to give you negative news. But if you are prepared, there's no need to fear. You don't have to worry about any of this. But you have to be prepared. And to be prepared, you're going to need food and water, warm clothing and shelter. Arms and ammunition. Oh yeah. And some precious metals. Now, I didn't want to lead anybody down a garden path, and I asked Julie Rowe very specifically, Julie, look, I'm in the precious metals business, and I don't want to delude people. Are gold and silver going to have value? And she answered, yes, for a while. That's why I always say to people, number one, food and potable water. That means you've got to have a means of filtering water. You can't carry water with you. It's too heavy, too cumbersome. So, food and water. Warm clothes and shelter. Arms and ammunition. Precious metals. And if you're prepared and with those items, you don't need to worry. You don't need to fear. You're taken care of. Not going to be any fun, but you're going to survive, and your family will survive. But you've got to be prepared. Now, our website will be up soon. You'll be able to order water filters and food storage items and all those good things, and get yourself prepared. If you are thinking of precious metals, call me now. Get it, because right now the market is down. It's about to take a huge leap upward. You don't want to get caught in that. Eventually, all of your paper money is going to become valueless. The things that I've been warning about have happened. On schedule. The rest of it's going to. Yeah, I wish I could wish it away. Won't happen. It's coming. And we deserve it. Any idiots that would put up a triumphal arch containing the god Baal deserves what's coming. And coming it is. Get prepared if you're not. Don't wait. You've got nothing else to do. Nothing else is more important than being prepared for these eventualities. That is a fact. Thank you for being on board. We'll chat again tomorrow.